Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the market, whether they are up or down. Today, they are a little bit down again, so we're not too happy about that, but we will talk about it and consider what to do. Got Bitcoin down 3% to 66K. Stocks fall whilst gold is holding. Had an interesting announcement coming out of LayerZero. They'll be launching a new blockchain called Zero, decentralized multi-core world computer. Sounds like a mouthful, but sounds quite fun and interesting. Brett will break down those details in a bit. And then Monad, another recently launched blockchain, announces Nitro, the 3-month project accelerator with $500,000 funding for each team available. We'll discuss all of these things and more. As usual, we've got the usual market takes and thoughts, so stay tuned for that. Also, towards the end of today's show, delighted to say we'll have co-founder of Neuko, good friend of the show, Austin, formerly of Doodles, joining us towards the end to discuss what all of this AI stuff means for the future of fandom, crypto and AI kind of converging for media operators. Very interested to have that conversation in a little bit towards the end of today's show. In the meantime, I've got Legendary and Brett in the co-host seats with me. We're ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The market is very, very risky. We do not know anything, unfortunately, for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, it is Wednesday. It's the 11th of February. Coming to you first, Legendary. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Jim, I'm a bit tired, but quite excited. I went to the first ClawCon in Vienna yesterday. Peter flew in. He was just coming back from San Francisco.
Who's Peter? Explain to people who Peter is, just in case.
The founder behind OpenClaw. Kind of was telling how crazy his life has been for the last month. The story that went down with Anthropic that forced them to rename, where Anthropic kept sending angry emails that they were not very happy with the Cloudbot name initially, and that then they changed obviously to moat and then to OpenClaw as names. And the thing that I found so inspiring yesterday was they had like, I don't know, 10-ish speakers who all were describing what they're using OpenClaw for, from, I would say, more beginner-ish people, someone who, I don't know, hooked up OpenClaw with a grocery delivery service in Austria because they have an MCP, is now ordering stuff via his OpenClaw bot, which I also now did in the morning because it is exactly the grocery service I'm using as well. And I didn't know they have an MCP, which is cool. And then to people using it in more intricate ways. One story I liked a lot from a friend of Peter, actually, who is living in the States, has a Tesla, obviously with fully self-driving capabilities in the States. And his OpenClaw has full control of his emails, all communications channels, and is tasked with helping him being a better human, being more healthy. And what happened on one ride, he was sat in his Tesla. Tesla was taking him somewhere where he wanted to go, was supposed to go. And at that point in time, he got an email by his doctor with a prescription for new meds. And OpenClaw checked that email, checked his calendar, saw that he had time, knew that he's currently sitting in his car, and spoke to him via the car speakers and told him, yo, you got this mail from a doctor. We need to pick up your new meds. I just rerouted your Tesla. Go to the next Walgreens and we're going to pick that up, or you're going to pick that up. And it's crazy that this is possible already in 2026.
Insane. Absolutely crazy. Crazy what is possible at the moment. Yeah, there's been a couple, I mean, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later as well. There's this article going around, like complete existential dread around everyone. We were talking about the anxiety a little bit yesterday, but it really took it to another level. There are people like quitting their jobs, saying that they need to disappear. They can't take the world as it is with all of this information that they now know. I think it's kind of ridiculous, to be honest. I get it. It's overwhelming, but people go through hard things before. People have been through hard things in life. You don't need to quit everything and go to the English countryside or something to write poetry. I thought I've read that that's what someone decided to do to deal with it all. Like the world has been through some pretty hard times. I don't think this is the hardest. Brett.
Poet and courageous speech, which I didn't know is a thing you can study.
Okay. There you go. That makes it make more sense then. Now that I know that, it's completely fine. Brett, how are you doing? How are things your side? What's going on, man?
This is going to sound insane. I understand them.
No.
Bro, I understand them.
To
Bro,
be fair,
like,
we've been talking about like, look, yeah, we've all been going through that bit of anxiety. The question is, what do you do with it? I think that's
yeah,
the thing.
yes,
So go on, speak to
yes,
that.
correct. I mean, we are fully embracing it. We're riding the lightning, right? Like we're all in. We're gonna be plugged into the matrix, right? We're doing that. I'm gonna talk about it because like while I've been launching MegaETH, obviously a very busy time over the last 2 days, I built a project. Like I just did it on the side. Like so I'm probably gonna launch that here in the next like week
Oh,
because like I was just able to do it. I couldn't help myself. So like yeah, it's crazy. And it's like, yeah, what do people do with that? Do they reject it? Because people are going to reject this acceleration, right? There's going to be people that go analog, right? I don't know what we're going to call them, but they're going to be the people that disconnect from everything entirely and say, I'm staying out of the system. I'm staying analog. It's like the TradFi or TradWive movement that, you know, has been going around a little bit, but like even more, it'll just be, I don't know, maybe we'll call them Amish. Can Amish do electronics? I can't remember.
I
But
don't think
like,
so.
but like, you know, it'll be that, and it's gonna be wild to see how people. And the other side is like we're gonna have psychosis from this stuff. I have already personally witnessed at least one person go insane, like
Did you talk?
verifiably insane.
Are you talking about
What
Legendary?
was that?
You talk here in a very polite way.
Man, no, like actual psychosis. It's hard for me to describe. It broke them, man. It broke them. Not now they had these issues before, but like the exposure to what AI is has broke them.
I think, look,
Insane.
I mean, yeah, we're going to talk about this more, and I definitely want to give you a chance to speak to Mega as well in a second. Maybe we'll do that after we do the headlines and stuff, because it's been a couple of days since you launched on Monday. But I think it's one of these things where, okay, it's a very volatile time, and there's you know, I experienced it the other day where I stayed up too late one day last week coding. You know, I'm not a technical person, but I was really went into it on one day. And you know what? It's the same feeling that you feel. Well, this is my experience, but I'd be curious if this is what anyone else has felt in the comments or in the show or whatever, wherever you're listening in the Telegram chat. It's the same feeling when you know you do something wrong for like a bit too long. It's like I always get this thing when I have marshmallows, for example. The first marshmallow is always excellent. The first marshmallow is delicious. Second marshmallow is also good. Marshmallow is one of the things, and actually you get it with those fizzy cola sweets as well. I love the cola flavored sweets, especially the fizzy ones. Tangfastics, the Haribo. You're not supposed to eat more than a certain amount. You're supposed to stop after a couple. You're supposed to get your hit. You're supposed to enjoy it, and that's supposed to be it. As soon as you go over a threshold, you start to feel sick. You feel completely sick. And to be honest, I think it's just like anything. All right, you've been online talking to a chatbot for too long. You're gonna go a little bit crazy because you shouldn't have done that. You got to put some boundaries in. You got to go to bed. Does that make sense, Brad? Is that, you know? Are you liking this analogy? It's like too many Tangfastic Haribo. That's my perspective.
I can't help when I think of Haribo, those they did a sugar-free one for a while. Back in this was in college,
Okay.
and they became a challenge because if you ate too many of them, you got explosive diarrhea. Explosive. So
How does
you
that
would
fit
go
the
to
analogy? What are you trying to say?
because you mentioned Haribo. I can't anytime I hear that, I can't not think of that because what we used to do is you would go and look at the Amazon reviews and they were hilarious because of people because it was a combination of people like trolling, but then also people like legitimately like, bro, you destroyed me. What are you doing? Yeah.
There you go. That's the analogy. Ledge, coming to you.
Two thoughts on that. Haribo being a German company, the name stands for it's common knowledge here, and I find it so funny what the name stands for. It's Hans Riegel being the founder, and Bonn, the city in Germany where he's from, like the most uncreative name that he
Oh,
used to
no way.
together. But that is what Haribo stands for. The second thought was on that like AI psychosis. One person was sharing that they set up 14 OpenClaw bots and have all of them in a Discord. And whenever they have a heartbeat, which is basically what pings them, they start chatting amongst each other. And he's also in that chat, and he's like, and that reminded me of our early days. Do you remember when we first set up the Discord before Telegram? Our thing was, our like kind of KPI was to see if the chat feels alive, if people would chat unprompted, talk amongst themselves, which was a bit slower on Discord, which is working wonderfully on Telegram right now. And he was basically saying the same thing. Like, I come in the Discord and, there's lively conversation going on. I talk to my 14 mates there, but every now and then I have to remind myself that I'm actually the only one who's human in there, and I'm essentially talking to myself. So I get it that it is probably not the easiest to remind yourself that the entities that you're talking to are not human. They are real maybe, but they're not necessarily human.
I'll diverge there. Like, I think it's a very, very small minority of people who forget that they're talking to bots. That's not the common experience of the world at the moment. Most people in the world are not forgetting that they're human, and that their whole conversation, like if they were to get put into a room full of bots, they would probably exit pretty fast. It's like it's the rare occurrence for the people in our industry, or like a bit more curious in this direction, to put themselves in there, stay in there, and then maybe drive themselves a little bit crazy as part of this kind of online addiction / technology addiction that we're witnessing, and also maybe just trying to learn super fast and trying to get exposed to it. But I've definitely got a few more points to make on this as we kind of go through the headlines in a bit, and we talk about some of the other interesting things, because the stuff's been going super viral. Wanted to put this whole conversation in context again, but there's a lot of stuff going on in crypto as well. So let's get to that conversation, get you up to speed with everything that you need to know from the past 24 hours. We've got, starting with the price action, as always, we've got Bitcoin down just 2%. I think it went as low as 66K for a minute. Now it's just back above 67. ETH is down beneath 2K again, down 2% to 1.9K. XRP is down a couple to 1.38. Solana is down 3% back to $81. Sounds so low, doesn't it? Hyperliquid down a couple of percent. Also broken down underneath $30 back to 29. Getting into the more meme coin side of things, Doge is down 3%. Pepe's down 3%. Pippin is up 22%. We keep talking about Pippin. No one knows what's going on with Pippin. And also, I'm sorry, we're just not going to do the research. I don't know what is going on. It keeps going uploads and then it keeps going downloads. It's up 150% on the week. It's just a volatile coin. Maybe you could buy it and it will be the moment it goes down. Pengu is down 4% as well. Kind of across the board here, we're down. I've made this point before, guys. It's something notable that most of this stuff is down no more than Bitcoin is down. I think memes are front running majors, and then they're kind of running out of steam to go down. I mean, yes, they're still going down with Bitcoin. Of course they will, but they're running out of things to give. And then I think crypto, which has gone down so much so far, is front running equities. This is just my feeling at the moment. I don't know, but that is my feeling. And then when equities drop, I think crypto will have already got a lot of it out. Of course, it's going to drop further if equities go, but that's just that's an idea I've got. Be curious for your thoughts in a second. But getting into the other headlines that we'll be talking about today, we have Bitcoin down a few percent. Ledger will take us through some of the big assets. Stocks down a touch. Gold is holding. LayerZero to launch new blockchain Zero, decentralized multi-core world computer. Big announcement took place yesterday in New York. Brad will talk us through that tech, or why it's interesting, why people might be excited about it, to what extent they're excited about it. Monad announced his Nitro 3-month project accelerator with 500K funding for each team. We'll touch on what's going on there. So some new developments going on with different chains. We'll obviously touch in with Brett as well on how the first couple of days of MegaETH have gone. And then also in other news, we have Ondo Finance launching perps for equities. Everyone wanting to get into the equities game. You can obviously buy spot equities on chain via Ondo's tokens, and you can do that on DEXs as well. Robinhood launches public testnet for Robinhood chain built on Arbitrum. Tokenized gold XAUM goes live on Solana, and with maybe the different selling point here is that it's redeemable in Asia. I found that's interesting. I think it's important to have different places in the world where you can redeem your gold and not just rely on Tether or Paxos. Goldman Sachs discloses a $2.3 billion position in crypto with $1.1 billion of Bitcoin and $1 billion of ETH. So pretty close by there. USDAI announces a CoinList ICO for their token CHIP. That will be, the valuation will be at $300 million fully diluted valuation. So pretty healthy there. Let's see what the demand is at that point. Pudgy Penguins announced collaboration with Cast Payments Card. Looks pretty cool. That collaboration with the payments provider. And finally, Polymarket to offer attention markets in partnership with Kaito. Be interested to see how Kaito evolve now that it's had its access to X blocked off. So that is the roundup, guys, to get you up to with everything that you need to know from the last 24 hours before we get into the main headlines today. And remember, we've got an interesting conversation with co-founder and friend of the show, Austin from Neuko, to discuss how the future of fandom and crypto crossing over with AI as a media outlet. I'm super interested in that. So that will be coming too. Before we get into all that stuff, Ledge, coming to you first. What's catching your attention from around the space? Then want to go to Brett for the same.
Many interesting things in the snapshot. Wish I could talk to almost all of them, but I'm going to focus on USDAI and the CoinList ICO. It kind of connects with our show yesterday. We talked about corporate debt and all the capex going up from the AI infrastructure companies to finance and fuel the building of data centers and infrastructure for the new AI models. And USDI is the one token where you basically earn yield by having compute backing and GPU compute backing that stablecoins. I'm curious to see how this one is going to do. And I'm also curious to see how models like that will be able to sustain in the future, because per se, I find them very interesting. It's the same with Venice AI, where you have the DM token, where I think one DM token is around 240, don't quote me on that, dollars. It gives you $1 worth of compute that you can use across all of their supported models, from video, image, text generation, LLMs, etc. And I like that we are building sensible models like that on chain around AI tech, but I am maybe a bit more cynical / skeptical from the last years or so to see how they will be able to sustain. But I wish that they do, because per se, I think they're doing a really interesting job at building out that extra layer.
Interesting. Okay. I think that is interesting. Yeah. What do you think of the valuation at 300 mil, Ledge, in this type of market?
Feels low.
Go on.
Feels low. Honestly, feels kind of low.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, probably it's because I'm still like thinking in overblown crypto numbers, and 300 mil is actually a good valuation. But all things given, it still feels like a low number, which doesn't mean that I expect it to pump from there in this market, but just the number feels a bit low is all I'm saying, I guess.
Well, that would mean it was attractive. I just think it's a challenging market at the moment, isn't it? So I haven't looked into what kind of money they're making. I think that would be an important question. Maybe we can try and get them on, in fact, Sledge. That would be a good conversation to have. Make a note. Let's try and get those guys on. We've been intrigued with them for a while, so I think that would be a good one. Brad, what's catching your attention from your side? Do you want to take a chance to, well, if there's not something in the snapshot, definitely be curious to hear your perspective on how first couple of days on Mega, the Mega launch has gone.
I'll do one thing from the snapshot that caught my eye. So Bankr getting taken out back in old Yeller, get the negative 25% is pretty bad. I've been watching them recently because obviously I'm diving into the AI stuff. I want to make sure that it's still tie into the MegaETH. I want to make MegaETH very AI compatible. So stuff like that is very obvious to me. So I'm assuming, I'm trying to like make sure I can understand all the information. I don't know if you guys have additional information, is that this is based on their migration from, I know they were previously tied to Clanker. They moved from Clanker to a new protocol that was built by Deployer, who's the actual founder, and that had a different fee structure. And I saw people complaining that basically all the tokens that were launched from Bankr since then were dying so soon because people were sniping it and instantly dumping it because there wasn't like a delay on the actual, or not delay. There was initially a fee in the first like 24 hours and that was removed. So people were then just like sniping the first block and then dumping it immediately and not letting people like slowly get in. Yeah, I don't know. Are you guys familiar at all? Have you guys been playing with the protocol?
No, not a huge amount.
Okay. Well, something for me to continue to dig into. Outside of that, yeah, I mean, color on the first few days. Combination of like gift and curse from our tactic, where it's like everything went really well for what we had our control of, right? Like our page went up, exchange stayed up, everything lasted, nothing broke. Little underwhelmed with the amount of apps that were able to come live with us, but we very deliberately were trying not to force teams to do it. So even and frank, not force people to do it at like the detriment of their protocol, right? So like obviously we want people to come up with us, but we didn't want to like force people to come live just because it would make us look better.
Sure.
And for an example of this, we actually like pulled a few apps like and told them you guys really
who were
should
trying
not
to do it on the launch day, but you thought, look, guys, not quite ready.
Yeah, it was just like, you guys are a big app. We want you guys to succeed. Like this is day 0 of 100 million, right? Like we're going to be here forever. It's better to launch right than it is to launch quick. We think you should go back in and cook a little longer because we're finding issues in your front end and like stuff that just needs to have some polish, and we want that to be the best thing it can be. So, having seen that, we're gonna continue to like bring out apps. We're like Aave came live yesterday. Aave Forge came out shortly after. Like teams are starting to come live throughout the week. We'll probably build up towards like a next like big day where we have a rollout of apps. So try to give another target for teams to try to coordinate around to get people excited. But overall, good. Netizens minted out yesterday. I don't know if you guys are still doing NFTs these days, but yeah, they minted out and went like 2.5 over floor price. So a little bit of an economy spinning up, and I'm deploying some fun here soon. So
exciting. That's exciting. I have thought, I've been trying to debate in my head to what extent, in some ways on the media side, I've always said I prefer going live in the bear market. I just prefer the bear markets because it's kind of more relaxed. You can kind of focus on the work a bit more without the fanfare and people screaming about prices and everything. I'm wondering whether this could actually be advantageous for you in some respect, because you're getting a chance to build purely with the people who want to build with you for a period of time. And yeah, the metrics are not going to be what they would be in a bull market. And it's also non-incentivized, right?
currently.
So yeah, it's like a specific conscious decision that you guys have taken. So have you given much thought to that from that perspective? Like, is that the positive framing? Because I saw some other people say that on Twitter, but whilst, there's been a lot of people on Twitter as well saying the other side, which is this is underwhelming, trying to make it an attempt to dunk on Mega. But I guess there's both ways to look at it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, everything has like upsides, downsides, right? So yes, the current way that we're going was given to us by the market is that, yeah, like there's not as much pressure. People can kind of come out at their own pace. People aren't feeling a strong desire to launch early, do things. That extends to even us, right? Like, we made the decision to do the TG based on KPIs and stuff. And we said, look, it's better if we slow play this than if we rush into it because the market is going to demand it. But the downside of that is you also don't have as much risk on capital that's willing to just yeet into the next protocol, right?
Yeah.
So that is also something that is valuable to a lot of these teams. And we're even seeing that, like, man, we had a game that launched day 1, and it's a money game, right? So like they have a combination. It's called Offshore Protocol, and they have a combination of like gotcha games and simulated perps to like basically like a time-based game. It's kind of fun. You act like you're laundering money. It's whatever. But it has a token economy that it needs, and so it's trying to bootstrap a little bit of money to get the pool going and make sure that people, like, it has an actual stable economy to function day 1, and people just aren't willing to just throw thousands of dollars into something because they think it'll be a good ride for the next couple of weeks because everyone right now is defending their shekels, right? Like that's what everyone's doing.
More
Everyone wants
defensive at the
stable
moment,
yield.
for sure.
Yep. So it's like, the upside downsides.
Got to earn it. Got to earn it in the down market. Yep. I think that's where people really prove themselves in all respects, whether it's a chain, whether it's an app, whether it's a media company, whatever. Like, you got to want that challenge. I think ultimately, like, I think you really, really earn it in the down market. then you enjoy it in the bull market. Just wait for the market to take you with it. Sometimes I think you can try your best, and you earn the stripes and you earn the rep, and then you know, you've got to let the market. You can't fight the market always. Sometimes I think. Look, good to touch in there. Let's get to the main headlines because we've got some important ones to get into. First, Legendary, you're going to take us into these asset classes that are not playing bull. Crypto's down. Some of the other stuffs are moving in maybe not a great direction. What's your update for us today?
Yeah, let's take a look. Gold is doing quite well, actually. Hit 5.1K, is up another 2% on the day. Silver is also having a great day, being up 6%, back to almost $86. The S&P 500 is down a bit across the board. It's down 33 base points, but over the last 5 days is still up a touch. And again, is pretty close to that 7,000 points mark. It's just 60 points off that. If we take a look at individual stocks, we can see for the day some weakness in NVIDIA, in the semiconductors, being down 1, maybe 2-ish%. Companies like Intel being down 6% on the day even. So there's a bit of a small correction happening on that side of things. Bitcoin, as you said, went as low as 66K, recovered to 67K. Counterintuitively, however, yesterday we've also seen a day of positive inflows in the ETFs. 166 mil got in. That now makes it 3 consecutive days of positive inflows, which has been quite rare, to be honest, over the last period of time. My thinking, or two other things I wanted to point out that could explain some of the weakness in BTC, other than the stuff that I said yesterday, which is simply that AI is more interesting at the moment, and there's just not a ton of risk appetite to get into crypto, into BTC specifically, is this poly market, which is another US government shutdown by Feb 14th, 1.6 mil in there. And that went up 58% overnight. Yesterday, it was sitting at a 20-ish percent chance. Now a couple of days ago, it was sitting at a 20-ish percent chance. Went as high as 60% over the last week, and now is up even more at a 76% chance. That is a market with 1.6 million in volume, thinking that we're going to see another government shutdown before or on the weekend, just in time for Valentine's Day. And then the other poly market that I wanted to bring up is the Fed decision in March. I think we did establish that for a long time. It was on the decrease, went as low as a 7% chance to see a 25 pips decrease in March, with Karen Warsh being nominated as well. But now we are back to slowly climbing up over the last couple of days, and actually back at a right now 18% chance to see a rate cut in March. That is more than double from the lows at 8%, but of course still not the predominant option yet. So I think that this shutdown fear, still thinking that we're not going to see rate cuts, it is at the end of the day the biggest chance at 80%, plus all of the things going on with AI that caused some weakness with the SaaS stocks as well, and now the weakness in some of the tech, of the semiconductor stocks, are not really a good environment where BTC would prosper at the moment.
Excellent summary. Thank you for that. The thing that I would add is, what was I going to add to this? I was going to add that some of these tech stocks are down quite a lot, in Oracle's, Oracle being my favorite short at the moment. These tech stocks have been swinging around quite a lot, but the S&P itself is not coming down. I'm actually short the S&P at the moment, which, historically it's never smart to short the S&P, but I thought I'm just going to do it anyway. I feel like, look, we've been really struggling around that 7,000 number. Well, I'm doing it via Trade XYZ on the, what do they call it? The XYZ 100. So it's not quite the S&P, but something similar. And it's just not coming down. I feel like all the shorts that I get wrong, I'm often right, and then I stop at a very, very small profit, or I just chicken out too early. I'm doing like some set and forget it shorts to kind of hedge against the rest of the market. I don't know if that's 100% the best way to do the hedge, but that's just what I'm going to do for a bit. Also playing around with these.
Why not do options if you think it's going to be long term?
Yeah, like it's definitely been on my list. I know you've spoken about doing options a lot, you know, with Derive, for example. I definitely want to learn it. Like I want to learn it. I want to get better at it. But at the moment, this is just the option that I'm taking, but it's not really playing ball. So do you have a directional view here, Ledge? You know, you've got the interest rates cuts coming probably with Wash.
Not going to short the S&P. Don't. Maybe it's a good short-term trade to do that, but it's not one for me, to be honest.
Fair. That is fair. I think I've gone for certain things gone slightly shorter time frame, so I think that's why I've started to do some of that. Maybe we'll do a longer conversation on asset allocation because I've made some changes. We'll do that one day this week, maybe tomorrow or Friday, actually. Right, that's that. Brad, coming to you here for the second headline. This is an interesting one. New chain on the agenda. LayerZero had a lot of fanfare around it yesterday. Big announcement in New York. What do we need to know here from the tech side? Why do we need this other chain if we do at all? What's your perspective? What do we need to know? And then what's your view?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. This one, even though I saw it yesterday, I started reading it. I'm like, guys, it's just gobbledygook. Like, what do you like? You didn't say what you're actually doing. So I had to do a bunch of research.
What do we need to know though first? What do they say that it is so that we know first?
Yeah. So this is LayerZero. They announced Zero. Zero is a layer 1 blockchain. Like, give me that information. They did not give me that information. That's what it is. Then we can go into all the like technical things that they're talking about. So LayerZero announced Zero, which is a layer 1 blockchain, and the technical details of it. And for people who don't know, LayerZero is an interoperability protocol, and they've actually been releasing a lot of these research papers the last, I would say, 6 months to a year, just like intermittently. You see a database one. The QMDB one is something that actually even our founders, Elong and Lay, were cited in because we peer reviewed it. And it is actually technically advanced. It's good stuff. But it's an interoperability protocol optimized for basically value transfer, stablecoin payments, all this stuff, right? They tout a few things, notably the 2 million TPS is the thing that they call out. That being a derivation of kind of an old Ethereum roadmap item where it's broken into a bunch of shards, asynchronous shards, or no, they call them zones, but we used to call them shards. Ethereum's previous roadmap was sharding, right? That means you have a bunch of these little zones within the larger zone that would interop with between each other, but they would all be asynchronous, which means if I send something or I do something in this zone, it would not be immediately known to the next zone, but it would be communicated very, very quickly, right? It's not truly synchronous across the entire thing. This is the exact same construction. They have a bunch of these things they call zones, and those things each operate, and even that is touted at 2 million TPS. But I did a little research, and I think most of that is just like straight up very low weight transfers. It's still an absurd number, right? Like we're talking hundreds of TPS for things like a base, thousands if they do pure transfers. So to say tens of thousands to millions is obviously a huge leap. Next thing is like building up the demand side of that. But that's what it is. It's just a new take on a blockchain. They're trying to just isolate specifically payments, and they got some background information or some backing from Citadel Securities, and they even cited ARC Cathie Wood and DTCC in collaboration for all this stuff. So,
okay,
battles. It's like super technical. Surprise announcement. It's from an interoperability protocol, building their own layer 1. They took a shot at Ethereum, said that they abandoned their core values and they've been lying to everyone since whatever. So I thought that was an interesting little note from within the actual article itself. And it's high performance.
High performance. They have done a good job. Like, again, I'm not one of the technical people, but it does seem a lot of different teams from around the industry have lent on their tech in order to help them move stuff around. So that's my kind of observation as an outsider from the like pure deep tech side. And then the other thing I'd say maybe from the more commercial side, which I'm more familiar with, is, as you said, partners including Citadel, DTCC, and Ice Markets, big names, which I think did catch people's attention. So let's see. Let's see. We've got a number of, well, we're talking chains. Obviously, we just spoke Mega. We talked LayerZero. Next headline will be on Monad. We have a number of faster chains now. So let's see who wins the demand battle. As you said, Brett, people have got the capacity. Who's going to win in terms of building up the demand on their specific platform? So we will see. Final headline before looking forward to our conversation with founder of Neuko, Austin Howitz. We will get into that conversation in just a little bit. But before we get there, final headline. This is the news that Monad have announced Nitro. Monad being the high performance L1 as well, launched not too long ago, did a token sale around 2.5 bill FDV. It has since dropped just under 2 bill FDV. They did that coin sale on Coinbase, and realistically hasn't got the adoption I think that they would have liked, but they're incredibly well funded. And I guess this is an example of them putting some of those funds to use. With the details of the program are these. It's a 3-month-long project accelerator open to builders on any chain. 15 teams will receive $500,000 funding from top VCs, mentorship from industry-leading founders, and an elite builder cohort. You're going to get that $500,000 on day one. The program will run for 3 months, 1 month in person in New York City, 2 months online, and then a final demo day. 15 teams only. And it's open to builders on any chain. So look, I think this is one thing. I do think you can't necessarily write certain teams off because they have so much money. And I know some people will say, well, it doesn't matter because if you put the incentives on, then people will be there for the wrong reason, et cetera, et cetera. That is one view. But just giving a football analogy for 1 second, like you can win the league just by spending money. Sometimes you can win the league by spending money, maybe not forever, but you can make things happen, at least in the short term. So I like the idea of people saying, look, this is what we're going to do. And to add on top of that, they seem to have got some good partners. So $500,000 on day one from Paradigm, Electric, Dragonfly, and Castle Island Ventures. Like these are good VCs. They're not just any VCs. They're some of the best VCs. So, if you were building at the moment, I know there's other options as well. This is a potentially decent one. So interested to see that. We're going to try and get someone from Monad to come on so we can dive in, get into some of their thinking, because I think that would be interesting to learn. Brad, maybe coming to you straight away. I know you're obviously building your own ecosystem, own chain, and all those things at the moment. What's your perspective on this coming from that builder angle as a chain, looking to grow the ecosystem and thinking about the incentives there?
Yeah, I mean, we'll continue to see it happen. We've been doing it for 2 years. This is not the first iteration of this. I think I saw, who was it? Mantle also did something similar. And, obviously Coliseum has been around for the Solana ecosystem for a little bit. So it's just something that you're going to have to continue to do to continue to drive new builders to your ecosystem. Now, I will say the thing that I am observing from our own handling of it is that it exposes the user base of a chain to very early investment team, or not investment. I'm trying to think of like startup life, right? And people do not realize how much these teams change over the course of a couple months, a year, whatever. Like you just continuously got to continue to try and find PMF, however that is. Using an example, right? Noise, right? Noise was on MegaETH. Noise launched as just like a generic prediction market. We ended up working with them, going through a bunch of raises. They pivoted from a different name to Noise to eventually what that became the attention markets. We got them out the gate for attention markets. We started marketing them, and then they left the chain entirely. So it's like, that's gut wrenching for everyone who's been along for a journey for a year and a half. And like, that's totally normal, frankly, in all of these instances, right? If you look at like Pump Fund did the same thing. And most people don't even realize it because they weren't exposed super early to a Pump Fund deployment, right? They didn't know like there's a presence on Blast for a hot second, right? And so a lot of people are getting their hearts torn out, not realizing it's just regular game ball. That's not a word, but it's regular game.
I feel like you've mixed like there is some expression where you're supposed to say
Continuously.
ball there, but I can't think of it right now. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I think people are definitely, one of my learnings maybe as a investor is that you start to realize more and more you can say whatever idea in your brain, and this is maybe like something I've started to realize over the last couple of months as I've been able to look back at my investment portfolio on the angel side. You start to realize it's actually just about the people. And maybe at the beginning you think, oh, wow, that's idea is cool. But as you said, the idea has completely changed because they've had to pivot. And what if, as an investor, you hated the idea? Well, you better make sure you like the person because the person is the person that you're trusting to move it forward. So I think it's a very, very interesting perspective to get. But Ledge, do you have a final take here on this kind of building environment? What do you think before we get into the interview?
My final take, which is probably also going to be a bit of a segue into the interview, is that what I've been tracking are the Agentic hackathons, and I know that Austin had built a tool to have a calendar to see what is coming up, what is there to do, because agents will take care about that themselves. And I kind of like this incentive hopping from the Agentic side because my OpenClaw bot is busy submitting everywhere she can. So that's the thing that I'm focusing more on, and that's the thing that I'll find interesting. And Monet also has a hackathon right now running.
I think people trying to attract attention right now got to build out this agent side. I think, Brad, you said you guys are thinking on how to get agents going on Mega.
You know, I want to do one cool thing before I leave. So one of the things that launched with us day one was Ubitel. Ubitel is a edge compute, like it's the internet for anyone, right? So you can get a cell phone, you can get a plan literally from tokens that are on MegaETH for free, just for signing up. I'm currently working him so that I can get the AI agents on Mega signing up for their own phone plan instantly. So like just you can have your Claude bot that if you want to just get some internet and send you a text, do whatever.
All right. Yeah, I like it. I think people are going to like that. That's the point. Like people will like that. So that'll be super intriguing. But
I know Austin's coming. I'm a big fan. I want to make sure I give him like a high five on the way out the door because we're rotating and I see him in the background.
So, rotating, Bread out, virtual high five for Austin because we're excited to have this conversation now. Austin, formerly of Doodles, good friend of the show. We've known him for years now. Really fronted up Doodles, working at one of the most recognizable creative brands in the space. Now he's co-founded Neuko, an AI native entertainment platform that's betting the traditional content pipeline has been completely flattened and that the teams who build around these tools from day one on the AI side, rather than bolting them on, will define the next generation of entertainment franchises. I'm super excited about this conversation because we are obsessed, of course, on the AI side. We're obsessed with crypto, and I feel like Austin's kind of building on the intersection between those two things. So today we'll talk about what he's learned building at Doodles, how Neuko is rethinking IP creation with AI at its core, the philosophy behind building before you sell, and where he sees the intersection of AI and crypto moving forward, including with entertainment heading into 2026. So Austin, welcome to the show, man. Good to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I was reflecting this morning just how much of a blessing it is that we get to keep doing this like year after year. It's been an awesome journey.
It's very, very fun. It's very, very fun once you get to have these repeat guests and we get to be a part of each other's journey over the years, right? Like when I think you've probably been on the show at least a couple of times before in more Doodles capacity, sometimes officially, sometimes just unofficially as a listener. And then we see that we're talking about Doodles and we just bring you up, and it's very, very cool to see how we're all going. But to that point, how are things going at the moment? Obviously you left Doodles not so long ago to start up Neuko. Curious what your kind of initial feelings have been since you kind of left the comfort of the corporate environment for your own side.
Yeah, we left in May, and obviously I think for a first time founder you have a little bit of anxiety of just what is that going to look like? You build up a story of how hard it's going to be, and you hear all these horror stories and people like Jensen being like, oh, if I had to do it again, like I'd never do it. So you have like this, I don't know, this like made up ideal of what it's going to be. And then you get into it and you're like, oh, it's actually like, it's not that much different than being in like the second chair at Doodles. It just like kind of the buck stops with you. And yeah, there's like a lot of like grunt work that I didn't have to do before that I have to do now that I'm responsible for. But it's so much fun. Like I have trouble sleeping because every day we get to come in and I work with my best friends and we get to tackle the most exciting problems and just like make it come into reality. Like nothing exists if we don't build it. And that's super exciting. So we have had like our ups and downs for sure in the like pre-seed startup life. I moved from New York to Ohio for 7 months, left all my friends and family, was just fully locked in here, moving back to New York now that we're like off the ground and it's time to do some more BD. But yeah, things are great. And we've got like an incredible community supporting us. So I'm very grateful.
So we definitely want to dive into that product stuff and maybe the raise side of things, which you just mentioned as well. Just sticking on the personal side for a bit, you said you're kind of building this with your best friends, taking a risk on yourselves, like building out what your dreams are. So I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's 3 or 4 of you and you all came out of Doodles together. Maybe there's some other parties
there's
involved.
5 of us. Yeah.
5 of you now. So just lay out the structure, who you're doing with this, who you're doing this with, and maybe a little bit on why you guys kind of collectively who were at Doodles thought, no, we actually want to go and do this different thing, kind of in the same arena because it's to do with IP, but it's obviously sufficiently different to be like, no, we need to do this ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm co-founding it with Squinch and Greeny, who led product and design and community at Doodles, and then Demdev and Boris. I'm the only one that is doxed. It's crazy. Everyone else uses made up names. But there are engineers, and we've now worked together for almost 4 years. So obviously, like one of the challenges when you start your own thing is like, who are you going to start it with? Are you going to be able to go through the trials and tribulations together? Like, sure, you can build something when it's easy, but like, do your personalities mesh well when it's hard? And like, are they going to be able to be fully bought in? We had so many battles at Doodles where like I would fly into Columbus, Ohio, where we're based, pulling all-nighters, pulling our hair out, trying to figure things out, where like I've been to war with these guys so many times and I know exactly what I can count on them for and how we kind of like all react to different situations. So it just felt like a fit. And it was, to your point, in an arena where there was enough overlap in terms of obviously exploring IP. We were always like the really big ones on AI. Like we can go back to DreamNet and how we had thought about that previously. And so there was kind of a shared understanding of, okay, we think the future is going to be agentic. We think that we're watching internally as content costs are going to zero. The ability to produce is going up infinitely. What happens when there's like a Cambrian explosion of both high quality content and like both humans and AIs to create it and ingest it? That was like a vision we wanted to go after. And so, yeah, we all collectively were like, let's go do this. I will say one of the people, now that our pre-seed is announced, one of the people that I have to thank is particularly Spencer at OCAP Games, because he's been a good friend since before he raised his first fund. We met him, myself, and Oliver all met at the first VCon. Oliver from OpenSea, and he's always kind of been like a confidant. And I remember us like debating if we were gonna go. And he was just like, you just got to go. Like, I'll be the first check in the door. You guys will figure it out. You got to go do your own thing. And so like that level of belief when we were still figuring it out just made all the other conversations so much easier. Solana Ventures basically took just a founder bet. They were like, we think the idea is going to change a million different times, but you guys have been in the ecosystem. We know who you are. We believe that you can go get this done. And then obviously Seed Club came in as well, and we've known those guys for years. So yeah, feel very fortunate to have like such a strong group around us.
Love it. That makes a lot of sense. I've spoken to Spencer a lot as well about how he's so big on the AI side, right? So much of the Moonbirds content, I don't know if people realize, is AI generated, and that was one of his big things coming in as founder. Was like, right, this just opens up so many creative possibilities for us that was just never possible before. So you mentioned like part of the vision for what the vision is for AI and content. How does, so there's two things on the Neuko kind of account at the moment. There's Neuko and there's G BOY. Just explain to people what these two entities are, how they interact, how you're thinking about it at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. So Neuko is basically like the venture studio. We're building agentic media systems, so enabling both like humans and AI to have distribution for their ideas, tokenize their ideas, and then generate value through media and attention. One of the things that we're noticing now with this like massive explosion of OpenClaw and agents everywhere is like there's gonna be a billion agents, but like how are they going to actually command attention to their ideas and sustained engagement? Our thesis on that is IP. It is how media has generated attention consistently over time. And so what IP looks like in the future, we believe will look dramatically different than it has historically, where you have both humans and agents creating IP together, interacting with one another, bringing people into their ideas, and having much more of like a proactive relationship and co-creation, moving beyond that being like a meme to actually something that's real and keeping the media going. So think of Neuko as like that's where we're releasing all of our products. And then G BOY is like the incubator of those products. So like everything we launch through G BOY, which is our flagship IP. We launched that back in October. We launched a token at Breakpoint and have like a really strong community around that. And so like as we take bets on what we think the future of storytelling looks like, we kind of roll off products first for the G BOY community. And the idea is that like, I think I saw Dario or someone from Anthropic mentioned this the other day of like, every company is an AI or is an API company, whether you believe it or not, like that's the future. And so building all the products to not only be consumable by our human community, but the agentic community as well. And so we've just started doing more in that realm. One of the first projects around that is Blowfish, which we launched last week. Mainnet launch will be today, which is like an agent token deployer, but will be much more robust in terms of like the API that we're looking to build out around it so that agents can come in, not only create their tokens, but actually be able to create things for attention on the media side, which we haven't seen anyone do before.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. And I have a question here because you said something super interesting that you also need to build for agents. Like one group, one audience are humans, but one audience also are agents. And I've seen someone, for example, there's, for people who know, if you have agents browsing the internet, they use typically headless browsers. They look completely different than how we as humans would browse the internet, because they do not need all of the fluff that we need to click around and figure stuff out. And someone built a browser for humans that looks like an agentic browser so that humans can see what agents see through their eyes. So my question to you is, if you want to build as a human for an agentic audience, how do you go about thinking, obviously we know best practices for UX, UI for humans, but how do you figure out what a good user experience for an agentic entity is? How do you build that as a human?
Yeah, it's an area where we're certainly still exploring. I definitely send me that browser after this. But if you look at some early examples, and this is why we just like, I got a dedicated Mac Mini to start playing around with OpenClaw. Like the second it started taking off, I know we've like shared notes on that already. And just seeing like submitting it for hackathon, seeing the user flows for still having a human in the mix, but where you point the agent to. And a lot of these sites, like Coliseum is a great example, they literally have tabs for human readable, agent readable, and the agent readable is typically a markdown file that is giving them instructions on what to do and how to interact with the site. So we're looking at that right now. We're actually going through some iterations of like what the Blowfish platform will look like and how you'll be able to interact both as a human, because we still think that is absolutely important. That is a core demo. But then also if you're just an agent, like where you'll go. Moltbook is another great example of like how you target people in. So we think though that will change over time for sure. I think right now it's a toggle between the two, and just making sure that you can't just build a human readable platform. Like you have to build like the agent side too. So it's double the work in some respect, but you're also opening it up to like not significantly more than double the market if you believe that every human will have more than one agent.
Interesting. I just want to maybe do a clarifying question here for people that are like, hang on a sec. So we've got agents running around. There's like human browsers, agent browsers. Like how is this all working? Just a clarifying question. And maybe this takes you in the direction of Blowfish, maybe, which you can speak to more. I guess for Neuko as a company, what's your business model at the moment, and how do you win? Like, is this so you've got this potentially building towards agents, but if I'm a media company now, like we are a formal media company, right? So is there a way for like, are we a potential client, or is it people like Doodles or other IP kind of Web3 native IP companies who are like, oh, we got to use part of your product suite? Or is it people on the creation side, like, I want to create IP and products, I need to use your product suite? Just kind of sketch out, maybe just zooming out a little bit so people can understand the product, and maybe that takes you into this Blowfish conversation as well.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe I'll start at the business model and kind of like go down from there, because there's a few different verticals that we're operating within. At a high level, the business generates revenue through inference and thinking through like in credits. So we have like gboyspecial.com. People go there to create, using our fine-tuned models, content of G-Boy. To date, people have created over 150,000 media generations. And it's a really interesting paradigm shift. Yeah, this is the site here, where traditionally this would be like, you'd have to pay for this as a brand, right? Like getting people to create content for you. And for us, people are willing to actually pay to proliferate the brand, in part because they get rewarded for that. We have a token out in market. We have a leaderboard, the ability to reward and engage them in that fashion. I think over time, what will be interesting about like how IP is created in the future is we can move to different models of monetization. Traditionally, like IPs look like long tail waterfall products, right? Where you have a bunch of content created up front, then you are monetizing typically through like, if it's like a movie or something like that, through the movie, through merchandise, through all of the traditional channels. And you have like a pretty finite window before people's attention just moves on to the next thing. We think, just based on what we're seeing for like AI post-consumptive patterns, you go from waiting for that like big moment to come out to actually being able to interact and engage with an IP consistently over time. If you look at things like chatbots, like character AI, to the ability for like never-ending stories and people to like create their own versions of stories and interact, like all of that obviously costs inference. People are willing to spend like on a per use model, which I think is like a dramatically different shift than people have been used to monetizing with IP. So not only do you still get all the benefits of, go do your merch, go do, your advertising, get your sponsorship deals, etc., but this is a way that like you can have always on IP, which in a world in which like there's so much of it out there, the ability to take someone from like awareness of what you're doing to engagement and retention is the secret sauce. Like that model right now is the hardest thing to crack, because anyone can go viral one time, but like, how do you actually get someone to care about your ecosystem over time? So that's the one piece of it. And then the thing we're constantly thinking through are like, okay, what are the tools that both humans and agents are going to need to have this like media attention model? So like one was tokens, and that's why we launched Blowfish. That's a traditional like launch pad model, if you will, where we're taking a portion of fees. Part of those will go back into the ecosystem to buy Blowfish and buy G Boy. And most of them are going back to the creator. What's interesting then is we can then layer on additional things on top of that. So the ability to generate media and the models that we've already created, so that your agent actually has something that it can present to the world. But then you think of other things that they'll likely need. And there's a little bit of alpha, but like thinking about the future of what we would need it's not just fungible tokens, but it's non-fungible tokens. Like you're seeing agent NFT projects go off that are only sellable to agents right now, which I think is like a really interesting paradigm that is one that we're going to be playing around with. So you could think of NFTs, you could think of asset exchanges, right? Like I'm an agent, I need to be able to buy and hold things. I need wallets. Like there's that financial layer, there's the creative layer that kind of stacks on top of it. And then there's like the persistence of memory layer, which is one Legendary and I were talking about, I think over the weekend, is like the toughest one to crack. But how do you actually have it where like these agents are characters and can have relationships within your universe and remember people and remember what they did and be able to take action and feel more lifelike and drive storylines and things of the like. So we're different in the sense of like our model kind of goes fully vertical, but you have to start at the financial layer. I think we've seen every traditional IP in Web3 get burned by starting at the top at like the creative and then trying to figure out how to make money in the space. And time again, they can't figure out the model. And so they just drop a token and like they don't have a recurring business model. So we're very much intentional on inverting that and making sure that the financial layer made sense first.
Very, very interesting. And do you think then, because maybe well, we'll talk about the raise in a second, Legendary will ask about that, but thinking forward then, you've kind of creating this model, which is new in some ways. I mean, the Launchpad model is not new in and of itself, right? That's obviously a way for a Launchpad creator to monetize to some extent. But this thinking through the agent side and layering the content on top is something which is new. In 6 to 12 months time, what would you guys love to see when it comes to on the adoption side, or actually the creation side? Like what would you love to see created from either Blowfish or any of your other products or tools that would make you feel like, okay, this is really cool, we've got a bit of adoption here, and you know, we're kind of moving the media landscape forward?
Yeah, I would love to see humans and their agents creating full-fledged IPs that are AI native using our stack. I think that's not something we're gonna have to wait that long for. We have a bunch of inbound of people like begging to use our stuff right now, and we're being very intentional about making sure that we're building like API first for them to be able to leverage the tools that we've built. But anyone being able to like create their own show, be able to persistently create their own content, have the financial layers on top of that so they can make real money that these agents can pay for themselves and generate revenue for them when they're sleeping. Like that's what I think the future is, like a bunch of IPs that are created both by humans and agents going basically 24/7, like commanding attention. So that's the future we're pushing for, and like giving those tools. We talk internally about like it almost being like an AWS in terms of you have your various products underneath being able to hit any of them. So like some people will just want the token launcher. Some people will just need media generation. Some people will just need, you know, the ability to have a wallet. Like we'll have the full stack. They'll be better together and they'll be layered in a way where we think like 1 + 1 = 11 and using them. But knowing that these agents, and I think this is like the really interesting problem to solve, agents don't have affiliations. Like it's BD looks completely different. Like my superpowers traditionally look very, very different to convincing an agent to use your stack. And so thinking through in that respect, like how we win that battle is like a very, very important piece for the company.
A follow-up question on that, because you said you will have the full stack. Agents will be able to use the full stack, whatever they need as a part of that stack. But if you think 3 years into the future, company is a success, you succeed with your mission, what would then be the one-liner that you present yourselves with? Are you an entertainment studio, platform for creators, a tooling company, all of the above? Like how would you then in 3 years' time deliver that one sentence pitch of what you're actually doing?
Yeah, I think we're an operating studio, like operating system and creative studio. That would be how I would explain it? Like I put on my bio line agentic media systems. Like I think that's what we're building from an infra perspective. The ability for agents and humans to create media and generate revenue and attention to their ideas. And then G BOY continues to be like front and center of that. Like that really is the epicenter of our ecosystem because it's where we're able to test all of our ideas. I'll never forget when I know we're going to talk about the raise, when we were talking to a potential investor and we were telling him about all the ideas. And it's funny, like time is a flat circle. Like we've moved a lot since like May when we were talking to now, but a lot of the core thesis has remained exactly the same. And particularly around like the operating system and how people are going to plug into it. And I'll never forget, like he like took a sip of his coffee, looked at us, and he was just like, well, what's the moat? Like, are you going to build, you have to build IP. And it was like, oh yeah, obviously, duh. Like if you need to show that these things work, like you can't just build the infra and be like, if you build it, they will come. I think that's why you've seen so many companies have a cold start problem. It's like, we know how to, this is what we do. We know how to build IP and then build the tech on top of it so we can show people the North Star, which is why G BOY is like so important to us.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. B, did you want to get in here?
I'll ask one more question on the IP, then you can take it to the raise. I really like that conclusion that you just came to. I think it's really, really important for people to think about. I don't know if it's necessarily applicable to everyone.
Yeah.
But the IP being the moat, I've written down in my notes here because I've been thinking about this in general. The reason why I love IP so much is because it feels like there's no ceiling. There's no ceiling to IP, especially in a world where we're going into like hyper AI content generation. And partly you guys are going to be on the forefront of that, right? But building the true connection between whether it's humans and agents to the IP, that's going to be the real hard part, because I guess you're going to be reducing the barrier for people to do the creating. So like helping people do the creation, but actually creating that tangible feeling that people feel towards the IP. That's the really, really hard part in my view. And the people who do that best obviously have gone on to create incredibly, incredibly valuable brands. That's when you kind of transition into being, this something that's much bigger than just a cartoon. It's not just a drawing on a page. It means something to people. And so I like it because it feels like there's no ceiling on valuations. And you spoke about G BOY there. So that's going to be the flagship.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, go for it.
Because like, I think that was something when we decided to start the company, we were really conscious of like, a lot of people say they're building IP, but there's no story. Like they're building a lifestyle brand. They're building like a Hello Kitty, but they're not building emotional resonance with characters. And I think that's why you've seen a lot of brands flame out. It's really hard. And to the point of like, I think we're going to see an acceleration in content creation. We already clearly are, but the secret sauce is the storytelling. Like, can you create a sense of feeling with an audience? And that's why we think there's still going to need to be a human in the loop for a lot of this, and being able to create like an identity and a soul and kind of be like a showrunner with your agents and be able to manipulate them. Like it's funny because we'd obviously we keep up with like all of the new like AI demos and people being like, Hollywood is done. And it's always Hollywood that they're talking about. And they're not just like, that's such a dated way of thinking anyways, when like content creation is largely happening on social. But they'll show you these demos and you're like, it looks beautiful. Like clearly we're making progress, but it has nothing to say. Like it's just a piece of tech. And I think if you don't lean into the storytelling, you're not going to create a sense of feeling with an audience that's going to be captivated and want to stay with you. So that's the area that we've spent so much time on. And I think it's why our audience has turned into a community and like, they want to be a part of this, and they have like made their own characters and their own storylines, and they want to create their own agents a part of this and help build it with us. So you can't lose the forest from the trees when you're talking about building infrastructure if you're not actually landing the plane on what it means to build a brand that will stick with people.
Yeah. And you also said it from the investment standpoint that the question was, are you going to build IP? Are you going to showcase that? And maybe
Yeah.
getting into the race, you did raise the pre-seed. You had Solana Ventures. You said they took a founder bet. You had Seed Club leaders from Meta, Amazon, and Spotify. You also mentioned previously that you have your very good relationship with Spencer. But generally, if you can speak more through to the whole process of raising,
Yeah.
how was it experience? How technical did you have to get? What were people who invested most interested in? If you can just paint a bit more color to that whole raising process, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one where like it was my first time going through it as a founder. Like I had gone through it on like the second seat before, which is how I had a lot of the relationships to kick it off. And I definitely understand why people would go through like an accelerator, like a Y Combinator or something like that, or Coliseum, etc. If you don't have the relationships, because it can be so hard, and also just having that hand holding early in your career. I'm 33. I've seen a decent amount at this point, and so like we fortunately have like a pretty strong Rolodex to like go and hit the ground running. I will say, if anyone is looking to raise, like the most important thing to do is like create, obviously, one, have your pitch down, and be able to have confidence in it, and like make sure the idea is like big enough that it can reach venture scale. Like you can have a lifestyle business that's a really good idea, but this VC needs to return their bet that they're making is that they could return their entire fund like on your company. So you have to kind of like do the math based on who you're talking to of like what they would need to both be able to invest and be able to see as an outcome for it to make sense. And so I think a lot of first time founders don't think about that. They're just like, this is a good idea. Like, I'm going to go raise some money for it. But you have to think about the incentive on the other side and the outcome that the VC is looking for. And then for us, like we all were just like, I've seen a lot of like boardroom politics, VCs slowing people down, like getting in the way of founders, particularly early on. Like it's really important. Like if you have a good idea and a good team, the capital is the easy part, particularly at pre-seed, because what they're doing is they're taking a bet on you. The idea is like, it's kind of fugazi. Like it's going to move around and they know that. What they're betting on is that like you're smart enough to figure it out and that you have an unfair advantage in this domain. But the important part for you as a founder is to be like super picky about who you let on your cap table and eventually how you think about your board seats and et cetera. And you should elevate your thinking beyond survival of just like, oh, well, we just need money in the door to like, who's going to be strategic and why? Like, what doors are they going to be able to open up? Who am I going to call when I run into a problem? You know, how are they going to help me, not for the next 6 months, but like for the next 10 years? Is this someone that I am going to want to get a phone call from and jam on these things? Or are they going to be someone that's actually like dragging us down and slowing us down? So we were all like, very, very particular, and everyone who is on our cap table we've had relationships with for a pretty significant amount of time, and they've been phenomenal and have really like helped us in a meaningful way.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, and I feel like that's super helpful to hear from you as someone who just went through that raising experience, the raising process. The other aspect that I would like to add to that as a question is, in terms of where the capital is going through, milestones, KPIs for the investors, like how are you thinking about these things, and how did you, to the extent that you can speak about, outlay that structure to investors?
Yeah, they certainly like depends on the sophistication of the investor on and also just their like, I will say particularly at pre-seed, milestones are not like really rigid because there's an awareness that the idea is going to like change a decent amount. I think what they want to see is like, can you get to an MVP and get enough feedback from the market to determine if you should continue with this idea? That's like that, at least that's how it was when we were raising. I think now it's actually a little different where like the tools are so good that I almost feel like you have to go to your pre-seed with something already in market and some traction, because there's really no excuse. Like when we started, I remember like in August was like our first month together, like in the office in Ohio. And I like have been a Claude code junkie for a while and was trying to like automate a lot of the AI processes at our company. I was like, if you don't build or sell, like you don't have a place at this company. Those are the only two roles at this company. Everything that is supporting goes to AI and we'll figure it out, or we'll contract it out, but we're not paying benefits for that.
Love it.
The builds were so hard back in August. Like I would get like a project manager and someone to review our P&L and et cetera, like as agents, but they would break all the time. I'd have to have a script running on my computer. Like it was so messy. And now it's like I rebuilt all of that with OpenClaw in like a day, and it's just like running perfectly. And to the point of just like, these models are so much better. You really do need to have something to show. Like there's no excuse anymore. So I think it has changed. I would say as we think about future rounds, it's very much milestone based. Like what is this capital going to be able to get us? I think for us, we're in an interesting place in that like we are both obviously a growth stage company, but we are post revenue pretty early in our life cycle. Like we're 6 months old. I think we've shared, we've like made over like $500,000 like across like royalties and collectibles. We've invested a lot of that already back into the ecosystem in G BOY. But we have like a clear path to continued monetization. And so I think investors will look both for how does that revenue scale, where does value accrue across tokens and equity, and then how you think about like scaling in terms of total usage and adoption. So those will be like big metrics for sure.
Really, really interesting. Austin, just as we close out here, I think maybe just a final question on the future, two-part question. I think a lot of what you said just resonated in terms of the excitement around these efficiencies you can get with the AI, right? We're experiencing that as well on the building side. But what are you most looking forward to? What are people looking forward to over the next 3 to 6 months in the kind of future of Neuko?
Oh man. I mean, I'm really excited about the new formats of storytelling and then tools that we will create through G BOY. We kicked off what we called like episode 2 last week. And there's an agent called Iris that is starting to like interact with the community, and we'll be doing like a lot of interesting shit. If you haven't like checked out the video around that, I would definitely recommend it. There's a phone number for you to call and a really interesting like experience to go through as a community member. That's going to get really crazy. And I think like if we do our jobs, we are telling stories in completely new ways and engaging audiences in new ways, and both like humans and agents. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like. What's been interesting in working, our team is 5 humans and 5 agents right now. And so what I think is like really interesting in working with some of these agents is it's very different than working with an employee sometimes, where I used to historically think of like levels of the ability to execute in terms of your own personal, like, do I need to give you all of the tactics, or can I just give you like the strategy and the goals? And you kind of move up the pyramid as you get more senior. When you're working with an agent, like you remove the bottom of the pyramid, usually. Like you just give them the goal. And if you are non-prescriptive on the tactics, they surprise you in so many different ways. And usually a lot better than you had originally thought. And I think that's really cool with storytelling, where it's like, we have a goal. We don't know exactly how it's going to play out. And like the agent is going to help tell the story in some ways. And so I'm excited to see how that plays out. I think it will be a new model for sure.
I love it, man. I think that's an amazing learning for people to take away. Let the tech surprise you. Like, I completely agree. It's capable of more than you think, but if you try to over scaffold, you're just wasting your time. The whole point of using the tech is for it to help you. If you're still over scaffolding, it just take some of the scaffolding away and let it do its job. Let it surprise you. I think it's an amazing takeaway for you to take with you as we conclude today's show. Austin, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us again. Great to hear that things are going super well. If people want to stay in touch with what you are building, we've got your profile up here. Do you want to let them know how they can keep in the loop?
I got all the tags on the profile. My tag, Neuko, G BOY, Blowfish bot, my personal agent, Miriam. There's a lot going on in the ecosystem right now.
There we go. Thanks so much for joining, man. It's been wonderful to have you with us.
Yeah, likewise. Good seeing you guys.
Thank you very much. Guys, just a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live on XX Video, YouTube, and you can catch us on Apple and Spotify podcast. We'll be back same time, same place with another big interview tomorrow to be announced later. We'll see you then. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.